The Vice President, Mike Pence, today will be speaking at the Concerned Women for America 40th Anniversary Gala Dinner. President Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have lunch. The president later will be at a fundraising committee reception in Baltimore, and then he will be speaking at the 2019 House Republican Conference member retreat dinner in Baltimore. So we are going to be following all of these events as they take place. Joining us on POTUS, Representative Jim Banks, a Republican from the 3rd Congressional District in Indiana, tweeting at Rep. Jim Banks. Congressman, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, good morning, Tim. Good to be with you.
So you're going to Baltimore. I thought that Republicans wanted to avoid that hellhole. Isn't that what President Trump called Baltimore?
Well, we're looking forward to it. It's an annual gathering of Republican House members and senators, and this will be my 3rd Republican retreat. The president always joins us and gives us a pep talk. I'm told his message tonight will be a substantive message about a wide range of issues, but I'm told that it might make news as he dives into some of the gun issues and other important issues that we're debating on Capitol Hill.
I cannot imagine President Trump making news, but that said, I'll take your word for it. I wonder, let's talk about one of the issues that, it's interesting because I've been talking to Democrats and Republicans alike, and there seems to be a sense that the USMCA would be a good thing. There's some pushback from some Democrats on some particular issues. Why don't you lay out the case right now for this reboot of NAFTA, the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, and talk about why you think it makes sense?
Well, look, the USMCA is really good for our economy. I come from Northeast Indiana. We are an agriculture district, and we have the most manufacturing jobs per capita of any congressional district in the country. And my district is going to do really well with the USMCA. In fact, they project that 180,000 new jobs will be created, and it'll create about a $68 billion GDP improvement for our country as well. This deal was negotiated and settled over a year ago between President Trump, Canada, and Mexico. Both Canada and Mexico have ratified it. There is only one human being who is holding it up at this point, and that's Speaker Pelosi. And I contend to you this morning, I hate to dive deeply into politics this early in the morning, but the only reason that she's holding up this deal is because this is a big win for the president. And as you know, November of 2020 looms, and she sees her job at this point preventing him from getting any big win that might give him any support heading into the election season.
There are some changes that Democrats say they would like to make to this agreement, and they think that these changes would not be so severe that they would cause any consternation to either Mexico or Canada, especially not Canada. The Mexico might be a little bit more problematic. Could changes be made, or is this simply a take it or leave it document right now?
Well, I don't know if it's a take it or leave it document, but it would certainly stall the process at a time when we really need this to pass. I mean, with the issues ongoing with China, these better trade deals with Canada and Mexico give a lot more certainty and trade opportunities for farmers in my district, for example, as they deal with a lot of anxiety over the tariffs and the trade situation going on with China. So any delay at this point, any changes that would be made by the U.S. would mean that Canada and Mexico would have to go back and recertify their process as well. I think the speaker knows that. I really believe in my heart that she's holding this up because of the impact that this would have on President Trump's reelection. I contend to you that if and when the USMCA passes, it will be so good for our economy in this country that it undoubtedly will help President Trump in his reelection. So that's why she's holding it up. There have been some back and forth about whether or not the enforcement mechanisms are strong enough. Every time I ask substantive questions about what it would take to make those enforcement mechanisms better, I never get a straight answer. So it's hard for me to take that too seriously.
Again, Representative Jim Banks with us, represents the 3rd District in Indiana. In an op-ed you wrote recently, you just brought up the international issues with China. You say that right now, at a time when trade is volatile, Hoosier farmers crave stability and reliability in 2 key export markets. And it goes on to explain. Talk about that stability in light of what we've been seeing play out with the tariff battle with China. Is that hurting farmers in your district? Is that hurting industry and business in your district?
There's no doubt that it's causing a lot of anxiety, and there certainly the tariffs have impacted trade and taken away a bit of trade opportunity between farmers in Indiana and China. I contend that could be easily made up for with the USMCA. So what I hear we just got done with the August recess, as you know. This is our first week back to the circus in Washington. But when I was back in Northeast Indiana over the August recess, I heard from literally hundreds of farmers who support this president, support what he's trying to accomplish, and putting pressure on China to change their bad trade practices. The farmers in my district are the best economists that I know, and they know that short-term pain when it comes to tariffs on China could equal long-term gain for farmers and manufacturers and workers in our district. But at the same time, the tariffs are having an impact, and the USMCA is one way to make up for it.
Congressman, if I could, I wanted to ask a question related to some of your other experience. For people who don't know, Congressman Banks served in U.S. Navy Reserve, was also out of country during 2014 and 2015, deployed to Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom and Freedom Sentinel, receiving the Defense Meritorious Service Medal for military leadership in Afghanistan, also a member of the Armed Services Committee. So I think I can ask you this question. What's your take on this recent discussion with the Taliban on peace in Afghanistan?
Well, I got to tell you, I've always been skeptical that the Taliban would ever keep their word, would ever come to the table and do anything to work with us to bring stability to the situation in Afghanistan. But all that being said, I supported the president and his administration in trying to negotiate a peace deal with the Taliban. I'm not at all surprised that the president came to a point where he realized that the Taliban couldn't be trusted, and he backed away, as he has before, from what probably would have been a bad deal in supposedly bringing them to Camp David and signing some kind of a peace agreement that we, at this point, we know the Taliban would never stick to. So the question at this point is, where do we go from here? And after 18 years of doing the same thing over and over again, and which has failed, and taking more of a nation-building approach to the situation in Afghanistan, it's time to return back to the focus, the reason that we're there to begin with, and that's to wipe out the bad guys there so that we don't have another 9/11 on American soil. And so far, we've been fortunate that hasn't happened. But right now we know that the Taliban has taken over large parts of Afghanistan. They haven't held since 9/11, and to top it off, we have ISIS-K and other entities that are rising up there too. So I support this president and getting tougher on. I think in recent days, since the talks have fallen apart, the president has authorized his military leaders to go after the Taliban more as they eased some of that as the negotiations were going on, to give room for the negotiations. But it's time to get tough and wipe these bad guys out, and that's what the president's focused on doing.
I do appreciate you joining us on POTUS today. Be safe. Have fun in Baltimore. And thanks for being on POTUS.
Much. Good to be with you.
All right. Representative Jim Banks, he's a Republican representing the 3rd Congressional District in Indiana, has written a recent op-ed piece supporting the USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, says it would bring great benefits to his district and beyond. We will continue to follow the discussion on that issue and also his thoughts on the negotiations with the Taliban and the situation in Afghanistan. He is on the Armed Services Committee, among other things he does, and he's tweeting at Rep. Jim Banks.